Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, whenever you find a way to watch or listen to this. It's me, Omar, with yet another guest, and we're here to talk about something that on the night of the first playoff bowl, first college football playoff bowl, something that will be a pressing issue on the first weekend of December, whether or not New Mexico State gets a makeup game after losing their game to San Jose State. And joining me is Cade Gallagher of SSN Charleston Southern. Cade, how's everything going? Can you tell us about what you do for SSN Charleston Southern? Geez, that's such a mouthful.
Yeah, no, it is. CSU is good. um, so, I mean, what I do is just promoting for Charleston Southern. I started doing this last September. I noticed that outside of like the school social media pages, there wasn't really a whole lot of kind of a fan coverage or anything like that. So I decided to, reach out to the SSN page and ask if they had an account for Charleston Southern, and they said they didn't. So I offered to do it, and here we are a little over a year later, and it's definitely grown into a lot more than I thought it was going to. But so I just do everything I can to promote Charleston Southern athletic affairs, and wrapping up football season. They've only got 2 games left on the schedule, and then I'll be moving into some basketball coverage here in about 6 days. So that's going to be a busier time.
That's awesome. And I mean, I just love accounts like your guys is like all the SSN accounts for, certain Fs for all the FCS schools and, even group of 5 programs too, that give exposure that the schools lack. It's a great labor of love that you guys do. And I really appreciate it. You mentioned 2 games. Hopefully that's 3, as I mentioned before the podcast, because I'm really, really hoping to make a 1-hour trip north to west to Las Cruces just to watch some extra college football this year. But, for some context, on October 28th, the day before the San Jose State New Mexico State game, the college football world was rocked by the death of Camden McWright, the freshman running back for San Jose State. Just a truly, I guess, senseless tragedy. He was hit by a bus. It was tragic. And all our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and the San Jose State football program, as anytime there's a loss of young life, it's just sad. So as a result, both schools did the right thing and postponed their game. But that game being replayed looks unlikely at the moment, as San Jose State is in second place of the Mountain West Division standings, and they might play in the Mountain West Conference Championship game. So New Mexico State has been looking for a guaranteed replacement opponent. At first, they're looking at November 5th to find some replacements, but schools like Sam Houston State fell through. Something that Sam Houston State's athletic director mentioned on his podcast, and me. Being a journalist, I looked at all the schools that had 10 games and were not likely candidates for the FCS playoffs. And Charleston Southern happened to be one of those schools. So, Cade, what would your thoughts be of getting one more chance for the Buccaneer seniors to play and just to play another FBS school at that on December 5th if the opportunity presents itself?
Personally, I'm for it. I think the opportunity to go out there and yes, play another game, and also a game where there'd be a payday attached to it would be helpful. I know CSU has got plans for expansion in the future. They have one of the smaller FCS stadiums, and our athletic director, he cited a desire to expand upwards to 15 to 16,000 seats, which, as someone who went to CSU, ever seeing it's 4,000 seats or so, trying to picture what 16,000 seats at Charleston Southern would look like, I can't even quite wrap my head around that. I'd be more in favor of like a modest expansion, maybe 1,000 seats or 2. And so obviously playing a game against New Mexico State, getting that extra money, that funding is something that could definitely go a long way towards achieving that. I think with especially the future of Big South football kind of on the ropes. A lot of schools have announced their departures over the last couple of years. We've seen a huge turnover in teams that were in the Big South that have now jumped on to new conferences. You've got Kennesaw State, North Alabama, Monmouth, Hampton. Next season, you've got North Carolina A&T and Campbell departing for the Colonial Athletic Association. So really looking at next season, there's 4 teams left in the Big South, and that's Charleston Southern, Gardner-Webb, Robert Morris, and Bryant. They announced a partnership with the Ohio Valley Conference to essentially give both of those conferences they'll share one bid to the FCS playoffs. And frankly, I don't think that's good enough. I think it's a confusing partnership when you look at the geographic location. Think about a year that CSU has to travel to Eastern Illinois, Lindenwood, and I believe it's Southeast Missouri. No, maybe that's Missouri Valley. Excuse me. But to think about a year where CSU has to travel to 2 or 3 schools between Missouri and Illinois, it doesn't seem like a financially feasible option. So I've been a big proponent of CSU potentially looking for affiliate membership with the Atlantic Sun Conference. I think geographically it's a really good fit, and we have the rivalry in Kennesaw State and a former Big South member, North Alabama. But to do that, you need to make necessary adjustments and upgrades. And over the last few years, CSU has seen massive upgrades to the scoreboard, the turf field, the locker room, the field house. The only thing that is really lacking at this point is the seating capacity. And to get into the ASUN, if just as in a football affiliate, you're only worrying about the upgrades to football and not necessarily having to shell out the money for all the other sports. And so, a modest stadium expansion of 1,000 to 2,000 seats would, I believe, fulfill the requirements for the ASUN as far as what they look for. And so obviously getting an extra huge paycheck tacked on the end of this season could go a long way in helping that. So like I said, I'm for it. I guess it's a matter of wondering if the players are for it. And the coaching staff making that trip out there and obviously being made worth their while.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the money aspect of it too, with it being a paycheck game, which I had no idea that CSU had plans to expand their stadium. And again, I think 15,000, 16,000 is a bit over ambitious, but the first thing that came to my mind is just, pushing the FBS football, I guess. I didn't know if that was ever in the cards for Charleston Southern. But the money could go a long way to helping that in the future, that those expansion plans you mentioned. As a fan too, I know of course we're talking about from a fan perspective, but as a fan too, what are your thoughts about going to Las Cruces and I guess the El Paso area, as El Paso is an hour east of Las Cruces, and going to a destination that both the players and the fans wouldn't normally go to, enjoying some attractions nearby, like making this sort of like a bowl week, say the team visits White Sands or Carlsbad Caverns and, enjoys some nice Mexican cuisine, some of the finest Mexican cuisine in the country out in El Paso. Like, do you think that would be a rewarding experience for the fan base and one that they would jump on, or something that the fan base would kind of just like, I guess, not care less about?
I wouldn't say they wouldn't care about the experience. I'm sure there'd be some that made it out there. I think it's just a matter of seeing who would travel there. Me personally, with my life, with my work schedule and having 3 kids, there's no chance of me making it out to New Mexico. But not to say that there would not be fans that travel. I know of a few people there, very adamant CSU fans, that they might be willing to make the trip out there. And I think it could be a rewarding experience. And for the players too, to get an opportunity to go out west like that. Yeah, I think, we, given that distance, you might get a couple of hundred that would show up to that game. But I'm not really sure too. I don't really know how many CSU fans we got out west either. So, and if they do, they're not on social media, so there's no way to tell.
Interestingly enough, last season, South Carolina State visited New Mexico State last year, and my co-host and I, Jackson, we had their punter, Dyson Roberts, on the podcast, and he said that he had a blast just being on a scooter in El Paso the night before the game. So there's potential for good tourism there. There's a lot of attractions, and that's something that, like, I guess it's lost in this day and age, as the world kind of shrinks with with transportation and I guess with social media. But intersectional games, getting that chance to make that once in a lifetime trip, for a lot of the players it would be a once in a lifetime trip, because I was looking at Charleston Southern's football roster and it's very Southeast heavy, as I expected. I was surprised to not find a single player from Texas though on the roster, but even then, a great trip for the players, and they could make it a bowl week too. So I mean, something just an added bonus. I guess I'm just preaching to the choir here with this. Another question I have, I guess, just for context, like continuing like with a fan perspective, I noticed that Charleston Southern has played games, not one but two games at Hawaii in the late 2000s and 2010, and then a game out at Colorado. So, do you know if Charleston Southern fans traveled well to those games or gained a reputation for traveling well to FBS games?
I'm not entirely sure. I attended Charleston Southern beginning in 2012. And truthfully, I didn't even know that we had a football program when I was a freshman there until about midway through the season. Um, so I wasn't too, I guess, attuned to the athletics when I first started there, but it definitely grew on me over time. And I got a treat in the getting to witness the Jamie Chadwell era before he left for Coastal Carolina. CSU football historically hadn't been the greatest. They had a couple of winning seasons posted between 1991 and 2013 when Jamie Chadwell came on. And I know they were 0-11 the year before I got there. They were 5-6 the year that I did get there. And then Jamie Chadwell came on and won 10 games right off the bat and really helped at the time put CSU kind of on the map as a football playing institution. And unfortunately, he left after 4 years, and it's been kind of a challenge for them to, I guess, kind of produce what Jamie Chadwell was able to do there. And so, as far as my following of CSU, as far as the Hawaii games, I've only looked on the website and read their little recaps and stuff, and things like that, because that was before I was really paying attention, I guess. So, and then I remember the Colorado State game. That was like a late addition to the schedule, I believe, or Colorado, excuse me. I think that was 2013, if I'm not mistaken. I remember that game was kind of a late addition. They had an opportunity. Colorado needed a game, and we already had a 12-game slate that year. That was one of those years where the FCS gets that rare 12th game on the schedule. I guess there's an extra week. But we got an opportunity for that game. They needed somebody. They were offering like $400,000 or $500,000. So CSU agreed to it. And a couple weeks later, they were out there and they got whooped, but they walked out of there with a nice chunk of money. And I believe that the money made from that program that helped us get stadium lights at our stadium, which we never had before. So we're able to get night games. And CSU having a smaller donor base, it's a little harder to get things done as far as just improving the program and the facilities. But I mean, definitely credit Jamie Chadwell. That was a year that CSU didn't take a bye week. We played 13 straight games, no breaks with that addition, because we were supposed to get that break after 6 games. You get a week off and you got 6 more. And apparently they had a meeting with the players and said, y'all want to do this? We're not going to get to rest until December. And they did it. So, I'm not saying that it's out of the realm of possibility for CSU this year for, getting New Mexico State. They'd get 3 weeks to rest up and prepare if they do it. It's just a matter of, I guess, the athletic director getting on board with that.
Yeah, absolutely too. I mean, it's hard to imagine a situation with players to turn down another game. Considering too that Charleston Southern's last game is November 12th, so there would be a 3-week layoff. So rest would not really be a problem, which makes it, I guess, even more a bowl type of situation where you get extra practice for a young program, especially a young team this year that's kind of struggled at times. But I mean, I see the benefits there, but of course, money is the thing, so it does have to be the right offer. Another question I do have is in terms of exposure. So wild idea for this, but New Mexico State being in the Mountain Time Zone, this game could realistically be played, in an after dark hour, at around 10 Eastern time, 8 Mountain time. Do you think that exposure would be worth it, along with the paycheck to bring Charleston Southern to Las Cruces for this game? Or is it better off just to, I guess, not played despite, the potential for exposure there? New Mexico State does have a contract with Flow Sports, probably the worst televiser of college athletics out there. but still, it's still exposure, and it would probably be the only game on. It would be the only game on that at that time, I believe. And so the sickos would be tuning into that game.
I think for Charleston Southern, any exposure is good exposure. um, I mean, I think to get people talking and just expand, I guess, people's awareness around the football program. Some of our other sports, they've made a little bit of history at times. Our basketball team has been known to knock off the occasional Power Five. And so, if you're on Twitter, anytime that happens, usually it's kind of a trending topic that people are talking about, or, it'll go on. We had something end up on Barstool Sports a couple of years ago, and it had about 900,000 views. So it's like, man, that's 900,000 people seeing what CSU it has going on. That was actually had to do with baseball. We had an issue between a player and an ump, and he got called back for intentional kind of throwing his body into the pitch. And so the ump made her come back, and then he just sent one straight out in left field and homered off of it, and came around and stomped on home plate right in front of the ump, and that made it on Barstool Sports. So so I think for football, not saying something like that is going to happen, but definitely any exposure is good exposure for them. Anytime, a lot of people were talking last year, we came really close to knocking off East Carolina. There were two missed field goals kind of kept us out of that win column there. So came close and had some people talking, but fell just short. So it's like, who cares, But if we would have won, they would have been saying something about it, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a good point for programs like Charleston Southern in the Big South. Any exposure is exposure. Now, I guess my last question in this discussion too, something I just thought about. In the past, you've got schools like UMass sort of like to help build their schedule, pair in deals with their basketball program. Or I think they scheduled a paycheck game with Georgia, and Georgia agreed to visit UMass for basketball in the winter. So New Mexico State's got a great reputation out of the WAC now in Conference USA next year as just a great program, a program that has potential to knock off any program at any time. I guess what would your thoughts be? I guess it's unlikely that this would happen, keep in mind, but that Mario Mocha, athletic director for New Mexico State, agrees to come to Charleston for a basketball game, or sort of like a home and home situation. How much do you think that would help the basketball program out?
I think it'd be helpful as far as for the men's team getting a bigger program in there. The women's basketball team, they hosted Duke last December. Lost badly, but it's the fact we got a Power 5 ACC team like Duke to come into Charleston Southern. So I think for the men's team, they haven't had a whole lot of big primetime opponents come into the Buck Dome. I would probably say the biggest name brand team that has come into there at any point was Florida Atlantic University. Came in back in 2017 or 18 for. It was earlier than that. Sorry, I think we were in the CIT, and we got a home game against Florida Atlantic, and we beat them by 2. And so, I don't know how big Florida Atlantic basketball is, but as far as just like name recognition for me, it's like it's a more I guess higher up there on the scale type of team, to come in and to get a win against them. But I mean, yeah, to get an opportunity for New Mexico State, they got a solid basketball program. Just to get them in there. I don't know how many New Mexico State fans reside here in Charleston. The Buck Dome is pretty small. It's 900 people maybe can get in there. That'd be the capacity. So if there's a lot of New Mexico State fans, then better jack the tickets up, because we can make some good money off of that. So
Yeah, I know New Mexico State played at either the Charleston Classic or the Myrtle Beach Invitational, one of the two. One of the two tournaments this past season. So I mean, the precedent's there, for sure. I guess creative ideas for athletic departments, to fill their schedules, for sure. I mean, probably unlikely that it would happen, but it's happened before with independent FBS programs. So it just depends, I guess, how bad New Mexico State wants this game. Yeah, that's all the discussion points I have. Cade, do you have anything else to add? I'm really hoping this game happens with Charleston Southern, or to be quite frank, any FCS school. But yeah, anything final to add?
Just that I'd love to see it happen too. Just to get extra football in there. CSU the last 2 years has only scheduled 10 opponents. Our coach isn't interested in playing non-D1 schools. He wants to get as good of a schedule as we can get so we can compete and run. Obviously the goal I think for any program is to be able to run with the best. And so I think for him, you don't learn much out of hosting, Savannah State in a filler game that doesn't really count in the grand scheme of things. He wants to do everything he can to get better opponents. And this year they've hosted Furman, they've hosted Western Carolina, they played at East Kentucky, just played Kennesaw State on the road last weekend, and it's definitely something that Autry Denson has really tried to do, and the athletic department there is just schedule tougher opponents, because for them, if you can't run with the best, then why are you doing it? And so obviously to make it challenging and rewarding for the players too, that for me, I just want to see some wins right now. So if it means scheduling Savannah State or what are they called, Point University, just something to kind of build some momentum. Sorry, my AC cut on. So I mean, that's where I'm at with it. I think to get in there and the challenge of playing another FBS opponent, and obviously you go there and you come away with a win. I mean, what that would mean for the team to, after struggling this season, to get in there and potentially grab up a win against an FBS opponent at that, just the momentum that could carry into the off season as we get ready for 2023. Because like I said, it's been a rough road, a lot of adversity for this team this year. And so, kind of go out with a bang this year. And if you walk away with a win, great. And if not, you got an extra game. And, there's that only so many Saturdays t-shirt I see so many people wearing, So, yeah, that's where I'm at on it. I mean, if they can schedule the game, great. I'd love to see it. I'd definitely tune in to watch it, even if it is on Flow Sports.
Wow, I mean, you're a true fan. You're a true fan, Cade. I will say this. I mean, yeah, like who knows? Three weeks of practice for Charleston Southern. 2 or a week for New Mexico State if this game happens. So anything can happen on any given Saturday. Who knows? I mean, today New Mexico State, tomorrow Notre Dame. Given that Autry Denson is a Notre Dame alum, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding about Charleston State playing Notre Dame. But yeah, no, I mean, hopefully it happens, and it would be big for both programs. New Mexico State getting that 12th game, and Charleston Southern getting a nice paycheck game and some extra exposure too on a very light slate, on a very light, I mean, honestly, Division I slate with FCS playoffs and FBS conference championship games happening. There really isn't that much football to go around. So who knows, could steal some eyeballs, even if it is on Flow Sports. But yeah, thanks, Cade, again for coming along. I really appreciate it. Do you have anything else to say before we sign off?
No, I'm good, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. And Charleston Southern has just been added to my list of schools to root for. It just seems as with as many guests as we get on the podcast, the list of schools to root for just gets bigger and bigger. So I really appreciate it. But for those of you watching or listening, until next time, everyone, peace, love, and soul.